Hello, everybody. I'm Ellen Sentier, and this is Celtic Noir. And today, I'm going to read you something a bit different. Hollowbone, the next novel, sequel to Dancing with a Demon, is out due around midsummer. And quite a few folk have asked, what's it actually like inside? What does it feel like inside the story, Ellen? So I thought, okay, here's the opening chapter. It's London, it's noise, it's dance, and something is beginning to go very wrong. Oh, and mind the cat. It was the noise. Bad enough at Toulouse Airport after the peace of the mountain, but ye gods, Stansted was horrendous. Why did I say yes to Charles? Jan barged away gently, smiling inanely at fellow passengers, trying to get to the carousel to find her bag, and then fight her way through a pack of tourists to the customs. I'm still British, she roared in her head as she plastered yet another sickly smile on her face for Mrs. Hitler, who manned the desk, and waved a wand over her bag to check for bombs. The two pins, she thought in her head. I'd put firecrackers in there. No, you wouldn't, Killis chuckled in her head. But nobody could see him. Nobody could see the small black cat sat on top of her suitcase. She rolled her eyes at him. Soon be through, he added. I've put some express energy on it so the stupid bat won't bother you. Outside at last, she gulped in a mouthful of faintly fresh air. It stank of city, stale, overused. She squared her shoulders to go head down for the Stansted Express. Sheesh, she gasped silently, collapsing into a seat on the train. It's the middle of the day. Rush hour crowds aren't out yet. I'm just surrounded by bleeding tourists. Her mind motored on as she clutched her bag between her knees for the half-hour ride to Liverpool Street. And then there'd be another hour on the Central and Bakerloo lines to get across the river to Charles' studio on the South Bank. She sighed. Kellis sat in her lap, invisible as usual. Why, she asked him, why can't I learn to dematerialize like you do? Why can't I, why can't Scotty just beam me over to wherever I need to go? Because you're human, Kellis did the cat equivalent of rolling his eyes. You can do things I can't, but there ain't no way you're learning teleportation. Not right now, on the damn train. And this isn't Star Trek, so you can forget Scotty. The air on the tube was fusty, sour, dire with the stink of everyone's deodorant. Only a couple of weeks, she told herself. Only a couple of weeks just to get Charles' latest gig off the ground. And then back home. She blinked, shook her head. Home used to mean Exmoor, but now it's Bugarak, the farm at the bottom of the mountain. And it's still a surprise when I notice myself saying it. She sighed again. Coming back to London had set off all sorts of old shit in her head. She hadn't expected to awaken it. Thought I'd dealt with all that, she muttered under her breath. The city bloke, suit, tie, spotless shirt, in the seat next to her, smiled, friendly, hopeful. She glared. It worked. He ducked his head back into the Financial Times. She'd lived with Jack at the farmhouse now, under the Pest Bugarach, for over a year and more since she'd killed her grandfather, and Jack had taken her to his home in the Aude. A year of peace, of putting herself back together, and a year of dancing contact improv with him in the fields and the chestnut woods that surrounded the vineyard. My body has come back, she smiled inside. I never thought it would after all the injuries fighting the old bastard put on me. But I'm back. My body works. Never as strong as it was. I could never dance professionally again, but I can move and walk and climb the mountain. I'm strong. Oi! The cat dragged her out of musings. We're here. Jan grabbed her bag, hopped off the train, and took the escalator out into the sunshine. Breathing in deep, the air was decidedly better here on the south bank of the Thames, even a slight touch of sea. She set off for the studio. Hey, it's so good to see you again, the girl on the desk called as Jan came through the door. They hugged across the reception counter. Jan stepped back, quirked an eyebrow. They're up in Studio 3, the girl laughed. Enjoy. It was good to be remembered. Sometimes she felt as if those years as leading light of the de Bat's company had been a dream. Now, being recognized, remembered, greeted like an old friend, reassured her. It was real. I really was here. I really did do all that. She climbed the stairs, pushed the studio door open. Bodies, the stink of work sweat, the beat of the tablas, the group rolling gloriously, movement into next, again, again, again. It smacked her straight back into the company, as if she'd never left. Ah, she breathed it. Then remembered to breathe properly and snuck her way around the edge of the studio to where Charles worked with a slender girl, red hair tumbling down her back. That must be Fiona, the girl he'd taken on to take her place, the girl he wanted her to teach. Charles saw, let go of Fiona and came to her, arms spread, a grin splitting his long face as he scooped her into his arms, hugged her, kissed her. Ye gods, I've missed you. He put her down, held her away from him. You look good and fit and well. That rascal Jack is good for you. He put an arm round her shoulders and led her to the redhead. Jan? Fiona? He squeezed Jan's shoulders and let her go, giving them space. He moved over to where the group was trying out what looked like a cross between a rugby scrum and a love-in. The two women stood, watching each other, like wary cats, holding eyes. Fiona blinked first. She turned back to where she'd left her pile of stuff, shook her head and turned again. Jan stood still, waiting. This is so weird, Fiona began. I watched you dance for years, wanting to be you, be here, and now I am. She rolled her eyes, a what the fuck smile creasing her mouth. It is weird, Jan smiled back wryly. Shall we just go get a coffee and work it out somewhere else, or what? Hey, you two, Charles was back. You can do coffee later. I want you to work with Fiona now, Jan. Straight away, without thinking. You got strip-on under those jeans? Both women grinned, rolled their eyes. Jan peeled to jeans, pulled on sweats. What do you want? She glared back at Charles. It was like old times. He, peremptory, single-minded, focused on the vision he could see behind his eyes. It's two people who are one person, two halves of one whole. I want her to do it with Will. So I want you to do it with Will first. Then she can learn off you. It'll work, and it'll be in Will's bones already, so he can lead her really well. You okay with that? Jan turned to the redhead. Sure. Fiona's folded down to sit cross-legged and watch. Will came over, the twisted smile and rolling eyes greeting her as if it was yesterday they'd last met, last dance. Hey, I've missed you. He folded her in his arms as the tabla pair began again. They stood together, just swaying. Then she leaned into Will and he took her on his side, under his arm, as she twined round him to pull him down on the floor with her. They rolled together, and she pulled him up, taking him on her back to slide over her head, so they ended up back to back. One leaned in one way, the other. Leaning in, breaking apart, back and forth, again. Suddenly, she grasped his foot and rolled, pulling him over, across her, So he sat up astride her, facing backwards. He took her feet and, standing all in one move, pulled her feet at first over his shoulder. She flipped into a back somersault, and now, both on their feet, they mirrored each other across the studio as the tabla beat came faster and faster. The rest of the troops circled round them, clapped counterpoint and roared, "Rah! Rah!" mirroring their moves. It became a gang initiation, and the troop rushed into them, lifting Jan and Will, holding them high, and the couple caught hands, arm wrestling, and stopped. The tablas crashed their final beat, and everything went still. Slowly, Charles clapped, grinning all over his face. "Yes, yes," he breathed into the silence. "That's it. That's Pinky and Rose. That's precisely what I see." The troop let Jan and Will down. Everybody collapsed on the floor. Water bottles passed round. "I'm high as a kite," Will grinned at Jan. "That was something else." Jan left a smile on her mouth, but it slid out of her eyes as a frown line creased between her eyebrows. That was all very well, but it was definitely not she who would be dancing Rose in the performance. What was such fulsome praise doing to Fiona? Will got it. He slid an arm round Fiona's shoulders and squeezed. "We can do that," he told her. Fiona cringed slightly, looking at him sideways. "You make it look so easy, both of you. You and I, we just need to work together, lots." He got his breath back now, stood, reached a hand down to her. "Come on." His eyes invited. The tabla player set off with a gentle, sultry rhythm as Will pulled Fiona into his arms. Jan could see the woman knew he was gay, wasn't sure how to respond. The vision of how intimate he and Jan had been in their dance must be rolling like a movie behind her eyes, Jan realized. She touched a thread onto Fiona, let some of her own passion and energy seep across into the woman, and she saw it take as Fiona's body arched against Will. He held her in the back bend, and as her hands touched the ground, he lifted her legs onto his back and took her up and spun slowly round to let her slither to the ground like a snake. It worked. They were off. The tabla paced them, pushed them. Jahan and the troop stood. Slowly they began to take part in the dance. And again the drums thundered, the heat and the tempo increased. And now Fiona was taken by the dance, danced by it, had stopped trying and begun just doing, allowing her body and Will's to lead her. Jan caught Charles' eye. They grinned. As the climax came, Jan lifted the thread off Fiona, and the woman stopped. She went rigid, slid out of Will's arms into a heap on the floor. The tabla jangled to a stop, along with the dancers. Jan felt as if ice water had just been thrown over her. Charles just stood, limbs gangling now, jaw dropped. "What happened?" he managed after a moment. Well, there you go. Left you on a cliffhanger, so you don't know what's going to happen next. But something's definitely happening, isn't it? Okay, my loves, that's it for this week. And yeah, I have some eye makeup. There you go. So I'll see you all next week with another song, with another story. Let's try. And in the meantime, see you on the other side.